which a lot of people will be pleased to see. I think few would argue that his performances on the pitch don't deserve it, but I think you'll probably understand the wider controversy around this when the FA have listed so many charges against him for alleged breaching rules, and he might have to have some time out of the game at some point in the future. He has admitted to some of those charges, we understand. So can you explain your thinking on that one for us, please?
Well, the fact is he's playing for his club, he's available for his club. There hasn't been a trial as yet or any judgment, so I don't know on what basis we wouldn't pick him really. I think before the World Cup, Callum Wilson had a brilliant run of form and hit form just at the right time, and he's obviously had a little bit of an injury that has inhibited his performances in the last few weeks. Ivan's been consistent across the season. Of course, as soon as we named that squad, he had a brilliant game at Manchester City, which was typical. So, but he's playing really well. I like the way his presence in games. You know, I saw his game at Arsenal where I thought he was outstanding, and yeah, he deserves his opportunity.
Headlines will be as much about a couple of players you've left out as well. Raheem Sterling and Ben White leaped to mind straight away. What can you tell us about those?
Yeah, well, Raheem's not fit, so that's that one.
You would have selected him if he had been.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With Ben, it's similar with Ben and Trent, really. The three boys that are in as right full-backs, we've got them just ahead of those two. We're blessed in that position with a depth of talent, and yeah, it's the hardest position to pick, albeit it's never straightforward criteria, and it's always shifting around a little bit on form as well. But Kyle and Trips were obviously the ones that played during the World Cup, started the games during the World Cup, have been consistent, and Reece coming back is another top player. So yeah, we'd love to have that depth in every position on the field, really.
I remember when you first came in, you said to play for England, you've got to be playing regularly for your club and playing well for your club. And have you found that increasingly difficult to stick to that? I'm looking at Lewis Dunk not in, Harry Maguire in, and various other players as well. Is it just too difficult to stick to that idealist philosophy?
It's impossible. We've got to pick our best players where possible. And then there's a balance between, do you go with a certain level of player who's not playing quite as regularly, or a level of player who's physically fit and doing well, but I'm not talking about specific names here, but as a general principle, I feel as though it's interesting talking to other coaches of national teams that they feel the same. You've got to try to pick your best players as long as they can get to a reasonable physical level, and that's where we are with it, really. You'd love to have that depth, but we are shorter than the other big nations on depth of selection. I'm happy with the groups that we've got to select from and the quality we've got to select from, but in certain positions we are short of depth, and those numbers are deteriorating rapidly in the Premier League. That's not a concern for me, I don't think, in the next 18 months, but in 4 or 5 years' time we've got to be really careful on that.
That's a tough message for a lot of players who are pushing and want to get into your squad. If you're playing really well for your club, that might not be enough. That's a difficult message, isn't it? Especially to the likes of Lewis Dunk and Solly March and players like that.
Well, they are playing very well, and their club are playing exceptionally well. I think the coach is doing an amazing job. I think he's got the team playing in a unique style in our league. They're having an outstanding season as a club. Solly, we had with the under-21s with us, so he's a player we know well. But at the moment I don't see him ahead of Rashford, Grealish, Foden, Saka in those positions on the field. So they're hard calls, but we're always watching everybody. We're watching everybody regularly, live or on our system during the week. So there's not a game that we miss, and we do know there are some players that are playing well for their clubs and regularly. But as I said, I've got to pick the team and the squad that I think gives us the best chance of winning in 2 really big matches coming up. Experience is part of that. we're going to Naples, we play Italy, they're a top side. It's a different sort of environment. You've got to get the balance right of experience for those types of games as well.
Quite a few months have passed now since you had that personal quandary about whether to stay or whether to go. Do you feel kind of re-energised? Do you feel ready to go? You've had no more doubts? Do you feel you're absolutely confident you made the right decision?
Yeah, look, the doubts I had were before the tournament, really. I've said I spoke a couple of months ago, so I'm going over old ground, but I never wanted to be a divisive figure in terms of my doing the job affecting the performance of the team, because there would be a debate about, people would rather you lose so that you're gone sometimes than you win the games. So I did worry before the World Cup that did I need to say I would be going at the end to allow the team the freedom to play. We decided not to do that because I think when we left Wembley after the Germany game there was an uplift in the mood. We've always known where we stand with the players and that they're with us as a coaching group, and also wanted to show that you've got to come through tough spells as managers. I've had them before, and you're not going to duck a challenge just because there's criticism. But if there's not the level of support and it starts to affect the team, then that's something I'm very conscious of. So that was my concern well ahead of Qatar, really. From there, I think it's always right to assess after a tournament where you're at as a team. We have to start from scratch. We've got some brilliant experiences over the last few years, which means to be European champions is a realistic aim. But we're starting from the beginning again, and we've got to find the hunger to qualify. We've got 2 crucial games. We need everybody firing. I know there's a lot going on with the clubs, and there's a lot of football being played. The first thing is we need people in the door that we've picked, and then we've got to perform really well to get results in 2 very difficult qualifiers. Last
one from me. You say it's a new cycle. It is. You go again, start of a qualifying campaign, and some changes to your backroom staff as well. We understand Chris Powell's left, and Jimmy Floyd-Hasselbank might be close to coming in. Can you tell us about that and any other changes there might be to your backroom staff?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, we've really enjoyed working with. Chris was on a placement with us for the Euros originally, and we extended that. But the spirit of that was that we would give other people opportunities. We're in discussion with another coach at the moment, and when we've got something to announce on that, we'll do it.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi.
You touched on it there, the attacking depth you have in this squad, but with Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford and Harry Kane, is this the most informed group of players you have since you've been manager?
No, I don't think so. I think, those guys are playing well and scoring, but I don't think it's extraordinary compared to what we've had in the past when, Raheem's been flying or Jack or... So, we've had spells where, we're fortunate we've got good attacking talent, and Phil, of course, has had a little bit of an issue with injuries and things, but no, it's always a headache in those positions in the field.
And with Kyle Walker in the squad, there's an off-the-field issue that he's under investigation by the police, and there's been a lot of importance on representing the shirt in the right way. Did it make it harder for you to call him up in this instance?
Yeah, it's a complicated situation. I've spoken at length with him. The fact is, as we sit here at the moment, is that he's back playing with his club. There's no conclusive evidence to leave him out at this stage. So, I think I've got to be very careful on being the moral judge on things. As I say, we've had a couple of long conversations, and we feel we want him with us. We think that's the right thing to do, and we also know that when you're an England international, there's an even higher bar on how you conduct yourselves and what's expected. So I don't think we're taking those decisions lightly, but we are where we are with it.
And Trent Alexander-Arnold said behind Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier. What did you say to him, and what do you feel he's missing to get into the group?
No, look, I think I've always communicated clearly with all of the players on what we think their strengths are, what we think they might be able to improve upon. In the past we've maybe taken more players in that position, but I think this is a time of the season where you don't want to carry too many if they're not going to play. They're as well to have a break and re-energise. So I'm not going to go into a coaching conversation, but I think all the players that have not made the squad know the reasons why, and I think we always give clarity on that.
And straight into competitive qualifiers for the European Championships, just how difficult is it to go straight into this round of fixtures so close together straight after the World Cup?
Yeah, well, that's the big challenge we've got. To go to a World Cup, everybody wanted to be there. The fight for places was immense. The hunger was there. It was clear. Now you have to start again. I know exactly where our most senior players will be with that challenge. They're ready. The Hendersons, the Kanes, they set the tone for that sort of mentality that's going to be needed. We have basically a couple of days on the training pitch to prepare for a humdinger of a game in Naples. So we've got to make sure that we're ready for that. But I think the players will be. We know we are as a group of staff, and it's a good test for us now. These are the sorts of games that we've got to show we can go to these places and win. That's the next step for us as a team.
Right. Hi Gareth. It was confirmed this week the next World Cup in 2026 would be over 100 matches long. It would last 40 days. There's been concerns voiced by the likes of the PFA and others over the strain that this would place on players in terms of their welfare and their health. Do you share those concerns? And what do you make of Gianni Infantino saying today, in fact, that there needs to be way more football played, in his view, not less?
Yeah, I haven't seen the full extent or the context of the quote, so I don't want to comment on something that I might be not getting the full context of. I've said all along, I think there's got to be great collaboration on the football calendar, really. It's no use in England trying to resolve things with the Premier League and the FA Cup and then not involving what's happening with the UEFA competitions in that, and then it's no use sorting out the European competitions if we don't get FIFA at the same table. So at the moment the risk is when you clear a space somebody fills it, and we go on incessantly. So I think everybody's in agreement that needs to be looked at. Equally, nobody's putting their hands up for less money. So there's got to be a compromise somewhere along the line. If we want to get the rewards we do within the game, then you need the commercial contracts, you need the broadcasting contracts, you need the prize money, and on we go. So everybody has to sit round the table, and if we want to resolve that situation, everybody's got to work together. Otherwise, there's always a loophole.
Just quickly on Infantino, he was re-elected unopposed earlier today for another tenure, another term in power. When you think back to Qatar and the way that FIFA under him opposed England's and other European associations' requests to be able to wear that armband, is it healthy, do you think, that he's been re-elected unopposed?
I think the armband situation was very difficult because the rules on wearing kit are the rules, and if you open up a loophole for displaying a statement of any type, then you set a precedent. So I understood, although we were hopeful to support some of our supporter groups by wearing the armband, I also could understand it from FIFA's perspective.
And just finally from me, on the Kyle situation, I know you've spoken just now about it to Alex, but regardless of the outcome of this particular case, there has been previous with Kyle. You've spoken about that in the past. He spent some time out of the England squad after what happened during lockdown, for example. You've said that you want high-performing but low-maintenance players. He's certainly high-performing, but are you concerned about his the way he conducts his business off the field, away from the pitch?
I don't think I can answer that any better than I just did, really.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? I'll take one at the back. Matt?
Hi, Gareth.
Hi.
With talk about wear and tear and burnout for players because of the pressures that are being put upon them, how would you feel about a collaboration between the FA, between the Premier League and the PFA, talking about a minimum number of days of non-football every year for footballers?
Yeah, I think there are discussion groups about lots of things going on between all of those bodies, EFL as well. So there's good collaboration at a technical level where people are trying to resolve some of those ideas and get some consistency. But it is very complicated because there's more Champions League dates being thrown into next year's calendar, for example, and the Club World Cup as well, as has been mentioned. So it isn't just as simple as getting the English side of that sorted out. That's part of it, without a doubt. But there is more involved.
Thanks, Matt. And we'll finish one last one back with Rob Dorset here.
Gareth, I just wanted to ask you one about the Lionesses. Generally, their performances have led to a change in the school curriculum. The girls are going to be given the same access to exactly the same sports and football as boys are. And FIFA today, in following on from what Dan was saying, have said that they're targeting equal pay for men and women's World Cups within 4 years. Sounds like equality is moving forward. What are your thoughts as the England boss?
Well, I know for the girls, a huge part of the drive for them to succeed in the summer was the legacy piece, and that opportunity for everybody to be able to play sport was high on their agenda. So it's brilliant that they've been able to have an influence and get that through. In terms of the equal pay, I think I think if men and women are doing the same job and the men are being paid more, then that's an aspect that can't be right. Equally, if we're in a economic world where within football there's got to be the funds available to pay, then in order to pay equally, the broadcasting figures or the sponsorship figures have to tally. So it's probably an area people don't want to speak about, but I think there's a reality to that. There's an economic reality on that. So I have a daughter that if she's in an office and she's doing the same job as the person next to her, then I'd want her to be paid equally. There's no doubt about that. But there are economic factors between the Premier League and the Championship and across sports at different levels. And in the end, as I said earlier, we want a smaller calendar, but none of us are voting for less money as well. So, but the calendar and the sponsors and the broadcasters, as well as the fans, but in our league, the broadcast deal in particular is a huge part of why the salaries are what they are in the Premier League. Then that does determine what it's possible to pay, I think.
Okay, everyone, we'll conclude it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.